Go.
Blue Oyster Cult are celebrating 53 years of Cities on Flame with rock and roll. In the past 53 years, they have released many studio albums, which I'm going to offer a retrospective of today. They are one of my favorite bands, and I've been listening to them since high school, so I would consider myself an expert. I've even seen them live before. I'm going to take you through the initial success that they had in the 1970s when they started out, their commercial success from the early 70s, and then their decline in the late 80s and their first and second hiatuses where they weren't doing anything. Without further ado, let's begin at the beginning with the first album. In 1972, Stalk Forest Group changed their name to Blue Oyster Cult and released their first album under Columbia Records. It was a very big success, and it had a lot of supporters in the rock and roll community due to lead guitarist Buck Dharma's amazing guitar work on it. However, it focused more on his guitar work and left the rest of the band feeling unbalanced, which would change in their second album, Tyranny and Mutation, bringing the overall band more balance between sonic ground, let's say. And this would be very well shown in their next album, Secret Treaties, released the following year, which many consider to be their #1 best album. However, there's one thing that Secret Treaties did not have, and that was a chart-topping hit on the Billboard Hot 100. 1976, they released Agents of Fortune, which has their signature song, Don't Fear the Reaper, which charted at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed up there for 20 weeks. During this time, they had perfected their sound and mixing between all the different band members, so the keyboards, the vocals, the guitars were all at the same level, all allotted the same amount of time throughout the albums, and they released some very good albums after that with a bunch of commercial success. Albums like Spectrus, Mirrors in the late 70s, and in the early 80s they had Cultosaurus Erectus, Fire of Unknown Origin, and The Revolution by Night, some of which even had more charting hit songs on them. However, later on, tensions between band members and a changing music industry would force them to make some questionable decisions, to say the least. 1986 sees the release of Club Ninja, considered by many critics and fans to be their worst album of all time. They tried to be a pop 80s band and failed miserably at it. However, they did redeem themselves in the following 2 years after they released Imaginos, which had been in the works since as early as 1981, compiled a whole bunch of songs together and released it as an album in 1988. However, this was not good enough, and they ended up dropping their record label and just going on tour for the next 10 years. 1998 would see the release of Heaven Forbid under a new record label, which was by far their most heavy metal of any of their albums. They would later on return to their old rock and roll roots with 2001's Curse of the Hidden Mirror, which did not see very much critical or financial success, causing them to once again drop their record label. So they went from mildly popular in the early 70s to very financially and critically successful in the late 70s, early 80s, and then right back down again, hopping different record labels and trying to make different albums and such in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. This is going to be their first album in 19 years, coming out sometime this year in 2020, and I am very excited to see what they have in store, and I hope you are too.